The 2026 World Cup hosted in all of North America could honestly not have come at a more ironic time. There is a concoction of factors that come together to basically ensure that this World Cup will likely be the worst one we have ever seen. And there's also a series of hilariously ironic decisions and statements made. Even though it is shared across multiple countries, it is largely an American endeavor. The White House even set up a task force to tie the event to the 250th anniversary of the US. For some brief background, the World Cup will be held in 16 cities across Canada, the US, and Mexico. This creates like 4 issues already. For starters, this has been a wildly tense period so far between these countries. Well, more like between the central hosting country and its other 2 neighbors. Despite 3 countries hosting this tournament, 11 out of the 16 cities are actually held in America, as are 75% of the matches, meaning it is mostly the US hosting. The tagline for this tournament is United 2026, which is a funny play on words, but could not have been a more ironic tagline at this time. Let's get an irony counter going. In reality, the other 2 countries hate America right now, for good reason. Trump randomly decided to impose near universal 25% tariffs on them, and is threatening the USMCA, which he created to replace NAFTA. He's threatened to bomb and invade Mexico and to invade Canada to make it the 51st state consistently. As a result, this clip of the NHL face-off in Montreal went viral when Canadian fans booed the US national anthem shortly after Trump's inauguration.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
This sentiment has not calmed down at all for both Canada and Mexico. In the lead up to this trade war World Cup, only 22% of Canadians had confidence in Trump, 59% named the US as Canada's top threat, and favourable Canadian views of the US fell to just 34%, amongst the lowest levels in 2 decades. In Mexico, almost 70% held an unfavourable view of the US, and 91% had little or no confidence in Trump. Even internationally, a median of only 34% had confidence in Trump, with majorities in most nations expressing little or no confidence across 24 countries. Median support of US leadership fell from 39% in 2024 to 31% in 2025, and US net perception had collapsed from plus 22% 2 years earlier to minus 16%, below Russia's minus 11%. The 2026 World Cup will be the first ever tournament co-hosted by nations engaged in an active economic conflict and threats of military invasions. And it's all being supercharged by this absolute senile manchild who thinks that tensions with the other co-hosts would make the event more exciting. The White House has also created a special task force for the World Cup, led by none other than the Donald himself. But don't worry, he set up the vice chair as JD Vance. Honestly, what is the point? And it's not just Trump's relationship with America's neighbors and co-hosts that is a major issue. He has basically burnt every bridge America has developed in the last 75 years. I made a whole video about how empires fall and why America is next. Make sure to watch it after this video. FIFA President Gianni Infantino attended Trump's inauguration, and Trump publicly praised him at the World Cup draw. And this is the ironic contradiction. Infantino has said that the world is welcome in America, but that could not be further from the truth. For starters, the US banned nationals of 12 countries, full restrictions on 7, and partial restrictions of 15 more. This includes several countries that are actually playing, such as Iran, Haiti, Cote d'Ivoire, and Senegal. The last 2 were winners of the previous AFCONs, by the way, and many more. So the winners of other FIFA competitions are restricted or outright banned, whilst the failing US team hosts the tournament. Let's kick off the irony counter. Even players have started to get banned from entering. And this all gets highly political. The head of the Iranian Football Federation, Mehdi Taj, was denied entry to Canada over his reported links to the IRGC. JD Vance has said that visitors would have to go home when their time was up, or else speak to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, which basically means they'll unleash ICE on you. And that brings me on to my next point. What the hell are they going to do about ICE? Because there are realistically only 2 possibilities. Either they stay how they are, or they get suppressed. ICE can hardly be more unpopular and brutal in their methods. They've irreversibly deported American citizens, broken so many laws we've stopped caring, killed multiple American citizens that were doing nothing, and they're not even effective. They're basically going after people based off of the color of their skin, not their legal status. So imagine what will happen when you add in a tournament where people are coming in from every corner of the globe. Even human rights groups like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International are releasing warnings about human rights violations related to ICE. I'm starting to think that the FIFA Peace Prize was not a real, well-deserved trophy. Over 120 human rights groups have issued a World Cup travel advisory, warning fans, journalists, visitors, and even players that they may face racial profiling, electronic device searches, even the risk of cruel or inhumane treatment if they end up in immigration detention, which is literally the wording of the constitutional amendment. Amnesty even described the US as facing a human rights emergency. This is what you expect from a supposed backwards nation like South Africa, Brazil, Russia, or Qatar, not the once perceived leader in human rights. And what's more ironic is that the US State Department released a report in 2022 criticizing the human rights violations in Qatar. Add one to the irony counter. So whilst most people, including me, do think that Trump will tell ICE to chill for the duration of the tournament, pun not intended, it will likely still be an uncomfortable experience for most. Might even be a chance that this gets hijacked and used by the hard right, the core MAGA influencers and Fox News pundits, to portray Trump as being too weak, and therefore causing him to roll that back. We know how easily impressionable he is, and the midterms are very soon, and Trump knows that this is his final chance at keeping power and ensuring he doesn't get impeached. Therefore, he'd likely do anything to appease his fanbase. Well, anything except implement actual good policies. So who knows, there's a non-zero chance that ICE actually does end up causing trouble this year. But it's not just hostility inside the country, they also face hostility before they even set foot past border security. It all starts with the insanely invasive device searches. Border agents check your social media posts and even regular camera roll for anything they might deem as outlawed, such as anti-Trump or anti-Israel content. And let's be honest, Trump will make it all about himself, as he does with everything. That will also for sure involve arbitrary arrests and racial profiling, as warned by many civil rights groups such as the ACLU and NAACP. Mr. Who's the Boss, one of the largest tech YouTubers with almost 25 million subscribers, was stopped for over 26 hours before being deported, and he said he couldn't not feel like it was because of his skin color, especially because he's British.
Eventually, probably a couple of hours had gone, it started to become really accusatory, and eventually they took me into a deeper room, and I was scared at this point. All the guards were armed. They took me into a cell and they actually took all my clothes off and felt around in all sorts of ways. Very violating stuff, let's just say that. And then they let me kind of put my clothes back on, but they still didn't give me my phone. And I was stuck in this cell, no ability to contact anyone. Family had no idea where I was. I remember just feeling inhuman. 26 hours passed before I got sent back home. I got deported, and they didn't even give me my phone till the flight had taken off.
And he's coming from a country that is not known for sending over a bunch of violent criminals or terrorists. I think we're left with the conclusion that it at least partially was because he is not white, and that was an issue for some reason.
ESTA changes now require social media handles, email addresses, histories, and extensive family data from visa waiver travelers. While the State Department expanded online presence review to more visa classes and required H-1B applicants and dependents to set social media privacy settings to public. The Sport and Rights Alliance said US policies pose significant and immediate risks to immigrants, press freedom, and assembly. I mean, hell, some of the host cities are celebrating the countdown, whilst there are Marines and the National Guard deployed to fight the protests, whilst other cities said that they are planning within uncertainty. Side note, I do videos about politics and international affairs. If you've enjoyed this video and want to keep up with future uploads, make sure to subscribe. But okay, let's just say you've been late. You've gone past the travel bans, you've paid your tens of thousands for bonds, you got past border control going through your phone and surveilling your social media posts for anti-Israel posts. You got past the racial profiling and you ignore the president insulting your country or pursuing sanctions or military action on you. At least now you're in America, right? Your experience should be 10-10. Well, not quite. For starters, the heat will be bad. Mexico's government is seriously considering ending the school year 40 days early because of the heat waves and World Cup congestion. An estimated 88% of the matches could be played under high environmental stress, which could dramatically increase the risk of physiological failure for players. 14 of the 16 host stadiums already exceed safe play thresholds for climate hazards, with almost 90% projected to face unplayable heat by 2050. Qatar probably would have had these same problems, but they chose to have the World Cup in the winter, alleviating that problem. Another major problem is that, as mentioned before, this World Cup is basically taking place across an entire continent. There are up to 2,500 miles between cities where World Cup matches will take place. That's almost like having a World Cup where one match is played in London and the other is in Iran. And also, everything in between. If we had a World Cup where matches were being held in Britain, Denmark, Morocco, Azerbaijan, Italy, Poland, Sweden, Iraq, Albania, Georgia, Turkey, Ukraine, and Iran, we'd probably think that would be a terrible experience because of how much traveling is required. Even the Russian World Cup cities, the biggest country in the world, chose one section of the country and was therefore only 1,300 miles away, almost half the distance of this upcoming World Cup. Even Kaliningrad, which only hosted 4 out of the 64 matches, was 1,500 miles away. And not only was it over 1,000 miles shorter, but it's still the same country, which means no visa issues or border control headaches, unlike this World Cup. Even the Qatar World Cup was basically localized entirely in one city, meaning all the fan interactions, celebrations, and events happened together in one area, making it a much better environment and event as a whole. It's not just a headache because of all the planning between cities, it'll be expensive as hell due to flight and hotel costs. More cities and more matches means more travelling and more nights booked. Plus, because there's basically no rail alternative in North America, the only way to get around is by flying. The carbon emissions from that alone will be astronomical. It is estimated that it will result in over 9 million tons of CO2, almost double the historical World Cup average. 85% of which is due to air transport. Domestic airlines are expected to implement price surges of up to 400% during the tournament. And the only budget airline, Spirit Airlines, equivalent to EasyJet or Ryanair in Europe, has gone bust. One of the reasons is because of the increased jet fuel prices, which will also trickle down to consumers, as well as increased petrol prices, which is hitting America more than Europe, making travel in general very expensive. 79% of respondents expected the US to be more expensive than any previous host country. A basic 3-day, 2-night trip for a single group stage match has reached nearly $9,000 in cities like Boston and Philadelphia. This is another major problem plaguing this World Cup, how expensive and commercialized everything has become, and this is for 3 main reasons. The first is that the whole world, but especially America, has been going through an affordability or cost of living crisis, with fuel prices, crumbling infrastructure, rising rent and labor costs, and inflation driving everything up. The second is that this is just the Americanization of the World Cup in every sense. Bigger inventory, premium pricing, adaptive pricing, hospitality expansion, resale commissions, and a heavier tilt towards affluent or corporate attendance. America is in its late-stage capitalism era, where everything is becoming for sale, and the lives of the average people are just treated as commodities by the ultra-rich who own everything. I also made a video about how to destroy a utopia in 5 easy steps, how America went from basically the most prosperous nation in the world to the most pitiful in just a handful of purposeful decisions. Once more, watch it after this video. The third reason for the over-commercialization of the World Cup is that FIFA has slowly become a greedier corporation at the expense of its fans' enjoyment. FIFA had claimed over 1 million tickets had been purchased from fans in 212 countries, but it turned out that the adaptive pricing had meant that some tickets were being sold for as much as $3,000, as FIFA took a 30% commission on resales. Yes, for the first time ever, FIFA is using algorithms to adjust prices depending on demand to maximize profits. And it is so fitting that it is in the American World Cup. Irony counter, the most expensive ticket for the World Cup final reached $11,000, almost 7 times more expensive than the equivalent in the previous World Cup's $1,600. The most premium ticket tier reached a whopping $33,000. The US Open against Paraguay in LA went up to $4,100. Even the fan festivals, which are normally free, are including paid VIP sections, degrading the fan experience. Let us add to the irony counter. This is both an American problem and a FIFA problem. They will make tons of money from this. It will be hated by everyone. It is no longer the beautiful game because the working class who built the sport are now being priced out of the stadiums, turning it into a sterile corporate environment. Visitors from over 50 countries have to pay between $5,000, $10,000 and sometimes $15,000 for bonds in America, where they normally would be eligible for B1 or B2 visas. Hotel owners are already complaining that visa policies and geopolitical tensions are resulting in massive drag on international demand. In other words, no one from outside America wants to come to America. And the host cities are also complaining, saying it's the worst deal in history for US cities. FIFA has all of these stipulations on what cities need to ensure, prioritize and fund, and even have the goal to ask for tax exemptions. This financial imbalance has led to a collective shortfall for host cities estimated at over $250 million. States like Missouri, Georgia, and Florida are expected to lose tens of millions of dollars in sales tax revenues from ticket sales, funds that would otherwise support public education and healthcare. In response to these fiscal pressures, cities have been forced to scale back fan festivals or impose heavy surcharges on public services to recoup their losses. For example, New Jersey transit authorities are projected to increase train fares to MetLife Stadium by nearly 800% to bridge the funding gap. The governor of New Jersey even hit back against FIFA's absurd rules, complaining about how New Jersey pays for everything, FIFA provides nothing, and makes $11 billion. FIFA's lack of transparency in the contracts between FIFA and the host cities has been a big problem too. Many cities have fought the release of these arguments, and those that have been made public often have key financial information redacted. This is because FIFA abolished local organizing committees in favor of centralizing control in Zurich. So cities can't push for financial protection or local concerns. As a result, the 2026 World Cup is less a partnership and more a subsidization of FIFA's $11 billion profit margin by local American taxpayers. And more than half the countries will have higher bills to pay, as FIFA didn't agree a tax deal with the US, falling proportionally on smaller countries, which are more likely to be included in the expanded 48 team bracket. So FIFA brings in small nations to supposedly make it more inclusive. They have trouble getting through border security, and then they end up having to pay an unexpected bill thanks to FIFA and the US, even though they're both profiting off of those nations. Irony counter. The Canadian province of Ontario passed the Putting Fans First Act, which bans the reselling of tickets above face value. FIFA responded by delisting Toronto matches from its official marketplace. Is that not crazy? And I say all this, but honestly, one of the biggest sources of problems will likely be the American people themselves. For starters, we've all gotten used to how many shootings the US experiences. They literally have more guns than people, and significantly. So isn't there a slightly more than small chance that there will be a related mass shooting, especially when you consider how extreme the far right are? Imagine what they'll want to do when they see hordes of Indians, Africans, Chinese, Arabs, and all the other races they hate in their country. This could get very bad. I can only imagine how many online creators will try and prank attendees, sneak into stadiums, troll players and fans, call in bomb squads, swattings, just all kinds of degeneracy and the most terrible publicity possible for the US. I'm talking about content creators, cloud chasers, streamers. Oh my god, streamers will be bad. They will make this so bad as it's all just a race to the bottom to get clicks. And all it takes is just a few high profile cases to destroy America's image on the public stage, or whatever's left. And instead make it out to be a country full of nutters and simpletons. I can just imagine the final in the MetLife Stadium, in New Jersey on the border of New York City. How rowdy and chaotic could that become? Plus, the cost of living in Canada, which is already really bad, will likely be made severely worse, which could lead to mass protests. Mexico's crime rate, which is already quite bad, has also been increasing too. And this is all before we get to the football. This is not a very big problem, but it's still a sticking point. As we mentioned, this is the first World Cup that will feature 48 teams instead of the traditional 32. I predict it will also be the last, but we'll see. More teams does mean more representation, but it also means more mismatches, more low-stakes fixtures. The first half of the tournament will just feel like a chore to get through. There's a reason tournaments like the FA Cup include the top teams only after a few rounds, because you don't want to watch teams like Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City, or United play against Colchester, Grimsby Town, Tranmere, or Walsall every game. You knock out the less competitive teams first, so it's not a chore to watch. FIFA's incentive is very clear. More countries means more national associations tied into the event, and more marketing, more broadcasting, and more products to sell. It is technically more inclusive, but it is also just plain lucrative. No one thinks the World Cup should have every country. That's not why we watch it. With all due respect, people don't really look forward to watching Haiti, Cape Verde, the DR Congo v Uzbekistan, or Curacao v Cote d'Ivoire. 2/3 of participants will go through past the first stage as opposed to the previous 50%, lowering the stakes. There is no group of death when most teams will go through. As much as people want to say this is to be more inclusive, it's really just a financial move that will come at the cost of good football. Once more, it's ironic they chose the American World Cup to do this. 48 teams, 104 matches, 16 host cities, 3 host countries, and a 39-day schedule. More inventory to sell, more selling out, more host city complexity, more border crossings, more hotel nights, more flights, a worse environmental outcome, more surveillance points, worse football, more geopolitical tensions, and more pressure on an already hard-edged political environment. The difference between the 2026 World Cup and its 1994 one, also hosted in the US, is wild. 1994 was seen as a fun summer, which introduced soccer to the American people. The Soviet Union had dissolved shortly before, making America seem like the undisputed global leader, and FIFA also refused to hike ticket prices out of concern for upsetting the fan base. Again, is that not just the best embodiment of irony? It was a World Cup full of firsts. The first to use the 3-point win system, first goalie to be sent off, and ironically enough, there were no commercials during English broadcasting. Just add it. FIFA claims it is one of the most successful sporting events worldwide, holding record attendances to this day. For the reasons mentioned in this video, this World Cup is unlikely to be a very successful one. 59% of international fans would feel unsafe traveling to the US for a major sporting event, while 66% said that immigration-related rhetoric made them feel hesitant to attend. It will be a World Cup in branding and participation, but the air of international support, fan engagement, and general camaraderie will for sure be gone.
Because we support the US, the US, the US. That's the way we like it. We like it. We love it.
Most of what I mentioned will likely be present for the 2028 LA Olympics too, in Trump's final year in office, but that's a much less important competition and only in one host city. As mentioned, hotels have already warned that they are prepping for a demand that will largely be domestic, far more than previously imagined. No one wants to spend tens of thousands of dollars on tickets, hotels, and flying between a continent-scale tournament. One where you're stopped at every point of entry, denied your rights, potentially sent back home arbitrarily to watch games that are unnecessary in an early-stage war zone, whose leader has likely either insulted your country, bombed it, or outright invaded it. Don't get me wrong, this will probably be the most successful World Cup financially, but it will also be so emotionally hollow, whilst the 99% of people just suffer. How ironic, as that is the exact embodiment of what America has become. And to find out more about that video, make sure to click here.